Okay, story time. True story. So anyway, I worked at Hamilton Avenue at Honeywell Electronics a million years ago in Culver City on a big mainframe computer for a banking company. And anyway, so I knew lots about all that, but got a computer I bought from a friend of mine. His wife passed away, Jim Whitehead, and we bought a lot of stuff from her. Got some leather jackets and stuff like that. His wife passed away. She was real sick. The only thing he wouldn't sell was her Cadillac, which was beautiful. And so he had all kinds of stuff he wanted to get rid of. And he was an insurance salesman. And I don't know if he's still around. Jim Whitehead in Memphis, actually out in Collierville, out by Germantown. And he used to sell life insurance and stuff. And he did very well with that. He was going to corporates and stuff, and he really smart guy, and had a real nice little house out by Germantown. And so he had this computer, and bought that from him. And I mean, today you would call it like a dinosaur. This is back, let's see, about in the 90s. And uh, so bought that from him, and um, my other daughter was like 6 years old, probably. And so it had a chess game with it, and I learned how to do how to write programs in engineering in college, and so we literally had to write program because it was AutoCAD, CAD Key, CAD Cam, all that stuff. That's what I was. One of my classes were, and so we literally had to write programs and stuff. And so anyway, I was showing my daughter how to fix this one program on this game on this old computer, and so we were rewriting it, everything. We did a real good job with it, got it to work, and then my daughter became like a wizard years later. When she was about 8, she got a hold of a government system computer, and I warned them. I said, "Do not let her play on that." And they were like, "Don't worry about it." And then she did, and she flipped the whole system, and they called me complaining. I'm like, let your fingers do the walking. I mean, you made a mistake, and I warned you, so don't call me complaining because you're an idiot. But anyway, some people's kids. So anyway, so years later, uh, I'm running costumes in the clubs, and the old Oasis Club out in the Wicksburg area of Alabama. I worked there for years running costumes when I would come in town because I always worked all the way across the United States, California to Florida, all year round. And so this one club, it was kind of a rednecky kind of club, and the only place I ever worked in it was in the front end of the club, which you couldn't even see the bar or anything like that. They had this big wall when you come in, and then they had like a doho there that would take the guy's money, and then they could go in the club. So, like, I guess they did it so you couldn't see the show, because they didn't want you to see the show for free. Um, and then they had like 3 pool tables and a pinball machine, and it was very country looking. It just looked like a western bar in the front end of it. Um, on a big corner, big giant sign said Oasis on the corner, and big sign in the sky. And they always treated me like gold when I go up there to work. Hey, thank you for the thumbs up. And so, when I came in, they would let me run costumes like, on the pool table. And hey, yeah, my phone was down and like totally broke. I had to get another one. And what a mess it is. Um, and I've got to try to uh, take the other one and have the stuff shipped to this phone, um, because the other phone is kind of problematic, and I've got to do a vlog about all that. But anyway, so um, uh, I would usually run costumes on the pool table there on that front end at the entry of the club. Very safe. I was always very safe because these people were some like country folks, and they didn't play too well with others. So no ruckus, no Mickey Mouse crap. Even with the girls, everything was really straight up as could be. Well, eventually, the club and a girl that I dressed for years, Farah, she was working the door there underage. She was a doho there, and because her mom was the waitress there, and there was a guy named Mike, and then I think the guy that ran the club was her mom's boyfriend or her dad or something. I think it was her dad, and then this guy Regan bought the club out. He was like way younger than the original owner, and then he Regan was probably in his 40s, I would say, and so anyway, then the club was being gutted and kind of redone bit by bit, even while it was in operation. I was there one time where the lights fell out of the ceiling on a dancer that was on the pole. God, that was really scary. We were like sitting there and like the thing dropped right out of the ceiling that was being held up with a hanger, a wire hanger. That baling wire mechanic. But anyway, so this Regan was a jerk. And so all of a sudden, this new guy is working there, and his name is Chuck. Little short, thin guy, military haircut, dressed real clean, really nice, friendly guy. And he was a manager there. I didn't know him from anywhere, uh, just from there. And he treated me like gold. Anytime I come in there, wanted to run costumes, I'd call him and say, hey, I'm on my way, from whatever state I was at. How's biz? Got any new girls there? Let him know I'm coming or whatever. Do you need me there? And, he'd always say, oh, look, I've got 3 new girls and we really need clothes over here bad. Or, I've got 6 new girls. When can you be here? And I mean, just really a great rapport, great guy. So I started running a lot of costumes coming down from Memphis going over there. And then I also did Papa Top downtown for my friend Tom, who owned that for a lot of years. That was in a really bad area of town, but I was very safe there, inside and out. They escorted me in and out with a big, big gun in hand. And anyway, so I would go up there and work the old Oasis. And Chuck was doing a great job, getting these renovations done where Regan wouldn't do anything before that. And you never saw Regan around. He was such a jerk. And I mean, it was incredible from, like new carpet, paint on the walls, ceiling repaired, lighting being repaired. I mean, just really looking good. And it was just constantly going, going, going. Business building up. I had to hook up on some lockers for him because he wanted lockers for the dressing room, and he went and got those. And he was driving he was driving Regan's truck because he had I think it was a big white, real nice truck, and so he was driving that for the longest time. And really nice guy. I mean, treated me so good. And I mean, I'd come up there and he made sure that the staff waited on me at all times, made sure I had, my Coke and, if I wanted anything to eat. I mean, I was just absolutely taken care of all the time. And, oh, yeah. And so, uh, you know, he liked a girl at another club, he said was his girlfriend. And every time I would come in, he'd say, "You have anything special?" Or "I need something the color blue," or, and he would come over and I had jewelry, I had shoes. I always had a lot of different stuff, plus the clothes I made. Um, like when I do Huntsville, I would pick up a lot of stuff. I had a guy that made birdhouses, and when I'd come in town, he was an older guy, and it was an extra income for him. And I would call him and I'd say, "Hey, what do you got today?" And so he would have like birdhouses that he had made. I would buy a bunch of those, throw them in the trunk of the car, and then he might have some other stuff, like um, discount tools or stuff like that, really cheap. One time he had samurai swords, and so he would always give me a really good deal, and I'd buy a bunch of stuff like dirt cheap, throw it in the trunk, and I'd run it along the way. And so, um, I'd say, well, I got all this, and man, the guy just treated me like gold, and of course I pay house on all my sales, and I mean, my hourly there was awesome, absolutely awesome, and he made sure that the girls bought from me when, I come in town. He would tell them, "You've got to buy from Red." And so, anyway, he'd always buy a little something. And of course I'd give him a break, and I'd say, "If I give you a break, and I'm not paying a house on it either." And he'd go, "That's fine, that's fine." So whether he bought something for, $100 or $500, I didn't pay house on that piece, and I gave him a little break. And because my prices are geared for paying house, to a point. I got hit by a couple clubs trying to charge me 40 and 45%, and I'm like, "I'm not changing all my prices just to come to this club. It's not happening." So, um, anyway, I never saw this girl, and he always talked so good of her, that she was just so wonderful, and he was going to marry her, and everything was charming and beautiful. And so I worked with Chuck probably 2 or 3 years, and so uh, I uh, uh, I did real well with him. He had my numbers. He always called me. I had like 3 phones. I had one phone for Memphis, one phone for, I think, Alabama, and then I think I had Florida phone. I had like 3 different phones, because some areas, certain phones would only work in. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, where like when I'd go to Louisiana, like the only phone that would work down there would be like Cricket or this other phone, and so I had to have a phone that was that. And then, if I was in, in Alabama, like the T-Mobile was the phone to have, and then I had another phone that was AT&T or something. So I had different phones to work for different areas. And then, those numbers were local so that the girls could call me, especially back in the payphone days, because it would be a local call for them. And so, of course, I wanted to hear from those money girls, you know, using a payphone in the back room. Yeah, I worked all over the states, California, Florida, all year round for years and years and years. And so, even when I had my shops in Memphis. So, anyway, Chuck and I were great friends. He'd call me, and I'd talk to him and say, "What's going on?" "Oh, I got 6 new girls. When do you come into Bama?" I'm like, "Well, I can be there on such and such day, whatever," depending on where I was in the states. And I mean, there's a lot of times where I had a deadhead from somewhere. If I was up in Atlanta or something, and they called me down to NOLA, different places, and or I had to be California, or I had to be in Arizona. I mean, sometimes if it was a big money club, I was rolling. I was like, I can be there in 24 hours. But otherwise, I usually just did all the clubs on the route. You know, whatever was in my route, I would hit everybody on the way. And if something didn't work out, or they're having an event, well, then I would just didn't run that club. I'll see them next time, and I go to the next one that's in the area. I might go north, south, east, or west. So anyway, uh, really did a lot of good business with him. He was, every time I went down there, the club looked better and better and better. And then more and more and more customers, more and more showgirls. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, girls were coming from different states. I had a friend of mine coming from Oregon. Her mom's a costume maker and a bus driver, and my friend from Oregon, Stacy Rio. I'm like, hey, you need to go up there and work at this club for Chuck. And she went up there too, and it was great. And so, anyway, as time goes on, so Chuck was just the greatest guy, super good friend. One of the other clubs, a guy drove through the club 3 times and killed the owner, literally ran over him, kind of thing. That was pretty traumatic. I remember talking to Chuck that day, and I said, "Well, I'm headed out to Toy Box," and he said, "Well, you won't be," and I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "You won't be working Toy Box tonight," and I'm like, "Bull crap," because I just was there, and I got to go back because this girl said she was going to make the money in a little while, and I got to go back and see if she's ready because I've got her outfits she wants, and that's like $300. All I gotta do is walk in, bring her the outfits, and get my cash. I'm gone. Pay house. So it's that fast. He's like, you won't be going there tonight. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, well, the club is closed. I'm like, no, it is not. Anyway, actually, it was, and I didn't know. 20 minutes after I had left, somebody pulled up in the very same parking space that I had used and backed in the building 3 times because they were pissed off. Yeah. Whew, man, was that crazy. And so, because you never know what to believe in the bar biz. People talk a lot of poop. This was actually true. So, anyway, as time goes on, so then, I see Chuck a couple times down at old Runway Drifters in Dothan, which no longer exists. And, I'm like, hey, how you doing? And everything. He said, oh, I just thought I'd, come catch lunch before I open the club. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you're not down here like stealing dancers or anything like that because I'll throw you out. And he's like, no, no, no. I just come down, have some lunch and see my girl. And I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, he's talking to a girl that I know there that I dress and work with and everything. And her name is Honey. And she's a little tiny girl. She's a little bit chunky, real cute. She's a showgirl out of Columbus, Georgia. I knew her from there, and before she had come to Dothan. I knew her boyfriend, who's a mechanic. He was a really nice guy. And uh, she had bleached out, shoulder length, kind of straight hair with bangs. She talked like Rasputin, funny little character, and could drink like there was no tomorrow. She could outdrink the men. And this girl, a little mud shrimpy thing, you know what I mean? Little bitty girl. But everybody loved her. She was just a freaking riot. And I mean, every time you'd see her, all she did was laugh and smile. She just laughed and smiled, that Santa Claus smiling face kind of thing. And so, she was hanging out with Chuck, and she was dancing that day, and I'm like, surely that's not his girlfriend because I know her boyfriend that lives with her for years. And so anyway, she's sitting with Chuck, and he's just melting. He's like, hey, you got anything with you? And I'm like, yeah, what do you want? He's like, bring me some jewelry. And I said, okay. So I brought some jewelry in real quick, sat it on the table. And she came over, and he says, pick whatever you want. She goes, really? And he goes, yeah, just pick whatever you want. So she picked out, a piece, and he paid for it, and boom, boom, cash. It was like totally unreal. I went paid house on it, 10-minute sale. And he's like, that's my girl. I'm like, oh. And so anyway, his dream was this girl. He just totally adored this girl. And so, I mean, he was a firm believer in everything, and I'm sitting there going, she's never going to leave that guy she's with because they are a great couple together. They lived together for probably several years. And, I mean, I didn't think they were having any problems, but basically, she was one of the best hustlers on the face of this earth. She's probably not a showgirl anymore. Um, she's worked a lot of years. She worked up there in Columbus. I knew her from Columbus at a club out on Victory Drive. But she worked for a long time for the Orientals, and she made bank out there. And then, but anyway, so it was really wild. So every time, I would go up to the club, he'd always say to me, I need something for my girlfriend. And so I always made out like bacon, whether there were sales or not. I was going to make out like bacon, and I never had to worry as long as Chuck was managing one way or another. And he always spent hundreds. So next thing you know, he is also working for my brother, who has a funeral home out in Ozark at that time. And so, you know, that was really interesting. He was kind of doing both. And then he no longer, I think Regan sold the club off to somebody else or something, and he no longer drove Regan's truck. Now he was driving, my brother's Cadillac, one of his cars. Cadillac that belonged to Grandpa, and so he was driving that, and he kept it real nice and everything. I'm like, wow, where'd you get the car? Did you buy that? And he's like, oh no, that's not mine. And he always kept it real nice and everything. So now he's working for him, helping him in a funeral home. Now he wants to open a. There's a big bug in my car. Now he wants to open a computer business on top of it, and it's like, okay. And so he builds a computer for my brother that's really righteous. Then he gets Honey's computer, rebuilds it, and it's just like screaming fast. And people are saying really good stuff about him. And so, people have always asked me for years to make a website for Showgirl. And I'm like, no, I don't need a website for Showgirl because I deliver in person and I don't have time for all that. And, I don't want my stuff copied by the Orientals if I put it online and all this stuff. And so, anyway, I really never had much use for that. And websites were a real beginning thing then. That was like, and that was a real beginning thing. We're talking like the early 2000s. So anyway, after a while, I talked to Chuck up at the club, and he said, I said, what does it cost to, you know, have a computer built? I can build you a righteous computer. You really need to let me do it. I give you the deal of the year, da 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 da. And I said, well, you want to do like a kind of a trading thing, or yeah, kind of trading thing, or what? He's like, yeah, we could. You do that and all that. So anyway, he's supposed to be building me this big computer. Now, let me tell you, stop here and let me explain something else to you that was previous. I was working in Oklahoma and dressing girls there at a really great guys club that he also owned a club called Electric Beach that was way out in the booners. And he also had one in Tulsa. And he was a really nice guy. He was about 40 years old. And he went to jail for like 100 years for a joint. It was terrible. And they closed Electric Beach, and the other one stayed open for the longest while, and they were trying to take that from him, and oh, it was so sad. And a guy that was working there, helping manage or something, had promised me a computer for free if I would go to this meeting and meet at Denny's like 40 miles out of town. He would give me a free computer, and if I would just attend the meeting. And he literally gets on the phone while I'm at work in this club, and he's like, let me call my partner. And he's like on the phone in front of me, and this is back in the days where you paid by the minute for your phone service, you know what I mean, at track phone. And he calls, his so-called partner, and he says, we got the computers ready that are complete and all that. Okay, check on that. Yeah, okay. Okay, sounds great. And then hangs up the phone in front of me, and he says, yeah, we've got one that's ready, but you got to go to the meeting. It's really important. It's, for business, and it could be a really profitable thing for you. Da, da, da. And so I'm like, okay, when is it? And he's like, okay, it'll be like, at noon or some crap. And it's like when I need to be like going to work. My overall average is $100 per hour worked running costumes, dressing entertainers of all sorts, from cocktail lounges, casinos, to showgirls, to, all kinds of stuff. Wait staff, security staff. I dress them all, wrestlers. So anyway, I'm like, oh. And then come to know this sucker is like way out. And this is like before they had, um, um, GPSs and stuff like that. Okay, like you used a map, a trucker map, and you outlined it with a erasable marker and all that. Yeah. So, you had to drive like way out. I always drove Cadillac on the road, always, and they burned gas, and you pay for the luxury. And so back then I had a really big Cadillac, Fleetwood Brougham sedan to bill. And so anyway, I go to the meeting and everything, and there's like 12 people there. And I'm figuring, well, it's at Denny's, so they're gonna pay for, our beverages and everything. And then he gets the waitress over there, big ordeal. We're all sitting in a back room they opened up. And and so I'm like trying to figure this out. It takes him forever to get the meeting started, hour or two. And so has the wait staff come back there, and they're kind of looking at him funny, and you're thinking, well, this guy, if he's gonna have this meeting at Denny's, he must do this a lot. Or but they were looking at him, kind of sideways, what I mean, like squinty eyes. And I'm like, this guy, it's already looking scammy to me. And so I was feeling really uncomfortable. And two, if he's having it at Denny's, he's paying for the food, drink, whatever, right? That's what you would think. So the wait staff come over, and they're like, okay, and my big mouth, I'm going like, they asked me what I want, and I said, well, are you paying for all of us to eat during this meeting? He's like, oh no, it's all separate bills. And I'm like, this sucker drug us all here to freaking Denny's, and he's not footing the bill to have his meeting. Like, what the hell? So anyway, I'm like, no, I'm just gonna have a Coke. And you had to sit through like 2.5 hours of some bull crap. There was some kind of pyramid scheme deal, something or other, that made no sense at all, and you never heard of it. And all these people that were sitting in the same room, and we're all like, none of us can relate to each other at all. And it's like, this guy's talking all this hoo-ha. It makes absolutely zero sense. Okay? So, anyway, hello. Miss, that is horrible about the owner of the car. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that guy was a dick. Hate to say it, but that guy was a dick. The only time he was ever nice to me is right before he died, actually. That's what's so weird. The only one and only time he ever was nice to me was right before he died. He was an ex-cop. I think he was a cop in Birmingham at one point or something. That's what his obituary said. I was very surprised because he was like really a dick. But anyway, so uh, but my best friend was marrying him in like a week. That's what was really terrible, and she was there. She was there when it happened. So anyway, it was sad, but the guy was a jerk. They picked a fight with the wrong dude. But anyway, so we got through this whole meeting, and then finally I'm like, okay, because I need to go to work. I thought it was gonna be some quick thing that like goes on for like 2.5 hours or some crap, and get absolutely nowhere. He wants you to sign up, and I said, well, I don't sign up for nothing, and I would have to talk to my lawyer about it because I just don't. I don't even sign a cable contract without showing it to a lawyer. And I said, I'll think about it, but I need, all the paper information on the deal. And, but anyway, it was stuff I wasn't even interested in. It's like people come to me through the years going, here, you need to sell this Mondavi wine. It's for your health. You take a shot every day. And that, and I can get you cases of it a good deal. I'm like, no, I don't need it. People always come to me for stuff they want to sell me, that they think I'm going to go sell in these clubs or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't need it. I sell so much stuff anyway, I don't need any more new stuff. You know what I mean? So anyway, the only time I had to sell different stuff like knife collections or sword collections, as if I got a bulk deal that was kicking, and I picked it up and I'm going to run it out fast. But anyway, so going back to this meeting at the Denny's with this guy and all these people, and nobody was like talking to each other or nothing. So at the end of the meeting, I'm kind of pissed because they charged me for every single Coke and no refills. And I had like 4 of them. God, we just sat there forever. It was so boring. I didn't understand any of it. And it sounded scammy to me. I do not do pyramid schemes. I'm not a fan of those at all. I don't care if it's Tupperware or whatever it is. I'm not a fan of it. Mary Kay, any of the kind of crap. Sorry, my mother got burned by Mary Kay very badly years ago and did not get the pink Cadillac. So I'm just not a big fan of any pyramid caca. So anyway, I hope my phone still has power. So anyway, I asked the guy, I said, so did you bring the computer so I can put it in my car? Because I got to go to work. So he says, well, no, I sure didn't. But I'll have it for you when you show up at the club. You're going to be there tonight. I said, well, I wasn't going to. So I had other clubs to work. But, I'm getting ready to leave town. And he says, well, if you come by the club, I'll have it there. Oh, okay. Because he had told me before he'd have the computer when I went to this meeting. So already I'm getting danced. Finally, after about a week, going back and forth to that club, the other clubs, everything, and I'm getting ready to leave town. I stayed too long. I was hoping for this computer. I was staying with some friends, which was really cool. They had a big giant trailer. They weren't paying any rent on that. I don't know exactly how that was working. I think it was kind of a shady deal. But anyway, I had a place to stay in town without getting a hotel or staying at a truck stop. And it was people I worked with in the clubs too. And so, I finally, I'm up at the club one night working, and that manager guy's there, and I'm like, hey, you got, my computer ready yet? Because I got to leave. You do remember I do not live in Oklahoma. And he's like, well, yeah, he'll bring it down. So the guy, an hour later, I'm like so pissed, and I'm getting ready to load up and everything, and completely agree, and so finally this computer guy's talking all up. Yeah, it's an HP, and it's just wonderful. Being invited to all of them. Yeah, that's scammy crap. So anyway, he says, my partner's bringing it right now, so you'll have it because my word is 100%, like I told you. And, I really hope you sign up in the deal thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'll let you know. I've got to, review it a little bit. So anyway, this guy shows up. He looks shady. And he says, it's for her right there. That's her computer. And he's like, this is really a good one. And da, 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 da. HP, Pavilion or something. And it was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going, this is a pretty cool deal. I work with this guy. I got a free computer for going to a meeting, you know. So, we loaded in the trunk of the car. I'm scared while I'm getting ready to load my stock into the car, hoping nobody steals this computer. Get to the house, and everybody's there, Rocky and his son, and all these other people who are staying in this house. And Rocky's an Indian guy. He had hair down to his butt. It was prettier than a female. Okay, 100% Indian dude, and he was also a doorman at that particular club. And so, anyway, the next morning, got up and I said, Rocky, that joker finally showed up at that computer. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. He said, well, why don't we take a look at it and see how good it is? Because I think the guy's so full of crap. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, he promised me a free computer. So, he's like, all it is like the tower. I think all I got was like the tower. So anyway, he says, well, we'll just hook up to my son's computer here. We'll check it all out. I said, all right. See if it's a good deal. Anyway, they go get it out of the trunk, go to plug it in. It doesn't come on. And so they're like, it's not coming on. And we keep pushing the buttons and stuff and plug it, unplug it, check all the cords, cables. It's not doing anything. So anyway, then his son turns it around. He says, give me a screwdriver. And they go to open it up. And do you know what? There's like nothing inside this computer. There isn't poop in this computer. It's got like a couple cards. There's no hard drive. There isn't poop in this computer. It's like got, no modem. It's just a skeleton. That was my free computer. I was so freaking mad. I said, this scumball, I'll fix his butt because I know the owner of the club. So anyway, oh yeah. Even though the owner of clubs in jail, I know lots of folks. That guy ended up getting fired, yay, over me. Not the first one in my life that I nailed. You burn me, you burn anybody else I know, and you're a dirty, low-down piece of caca, I will get you busted. That's a promise and that's a fact. Because you 100% will reap what you sow. 100%. I do not like dirty, low-life, lying, thieving people. I mean, he didn't never have to even say that I was going to get this free computer. You know what I mean? He didn't have to say crap like that. And I stayed like an extra 2 weeks when I didn't want to be there that long. I had other places to be and for work. So, anyway, now we're going to go back to this other story. Chuck, the computer guy. So Chuck is really doing pretty good with computer biz. Now, here I am thinking about that old bad computer deal from that club manager, the strip club manager in Tulsa, Oklahoma, okay? Because here's another strip club manager. I'm like, man, we're just going to do another repeat in life. I could just see it coming, So, here's Chuck, who's running a strip club, and, now he's working at a funeral home, and, now he's building this horrendous computer business where people are like bringing computers down to the funeral home, dropping them off. So while he's sitting around, because, dead bodies they're not working on them all the time. They have to die first for them to be able to work on a body. It's just not an all the time business. It's just, one of those things. It's not like planting trees and they grow. Dead bodies don't come all the time. So sometimes there's no work or sometimes there's a lot of work. So it's very unpredictable, the funeral home business. So anyway, Chuck is running this funeral home at this point. He's handling everything, all kinds of paperwork, all kinds of stuff, just taking care of everything, driving a nice Cadillac, belonging to Grandpa. You know, got it made in the shade. He's like staying in the funeral home because he got no place to live. So he's staying in the funeral home so he can be there working at all time, 24 hours if a body comes in, the whole deal, and he's doing the computer stuff. The computer stuff's doing pretty darn good. I mean, the computers are stacking up over there. So here's this guy. He's like, yeah, I can build you a computer. And I'm like, God, I hope it's not like that Tulsa deal. Huh. I'll be just like, stepping in the mud all over again. Stepped in what and fell back in it. So anyway, I said, yeah, okay, if you want to do trade, we'll do a computer thing. And I trade you stuff for your girl, honey, whatever, and maybe a little cash, half cash. How do you want to do it? He's like, oh, just whatever. He said, but I can build you the most unreal computer. Just tell me what you need on it. And I'm like, I don't know what I need on it. I guess I need to build a website. See, I started Showgirl website in like 2001. Yeah, I think it was about 2001, 2002. And so, I needed a computer to build the website, which I had never done in my life. But I knew I needed a computer. So anyway, and I didn't even have computer telephones back then. All they had was like car phones and then, these little radio cell phone things that were prepaid by the minute. So, technology just wasn't all the way there yet. So anyway, so he's like, yeah, I just real, I would go up to the funeral home and he'd have like 20 computers sitting on a rack behind the desk. And he was always tweaking on the computers. I'm like, man, this is really impressive. And then he showed me his computer. And he's like, see all the stuff that mine does, and I could do this for you, and da-da. I'm like, really, And so yeah, I've had dial-up internet and all that stuff, especially in the country because and the South because they don't have all that nouveau stuff with the phone company. They had like everything was like dial-up modem. There's still people using that. There are still people using that. CenturyTel. But anyway, so um yeah. Dial-up, broadband, all that good stuff. Yeah. So anyway, they I gotta open this other window. So anyway, I said, well, okay, build me a computer, whatever. And he's like, I can make it really good. Every time I go up there, or I'd see him in the club, he's like, I'm building your computer, and I ordered a case for it, a special case. I think you really like it. And he's talking all this mumbo jumbo. I don't know what he's talking about. And then the next time, I talked to him on the phone. He's like, okay, so did you want this or did you? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Is that very expensive? How much does it add on to the price? So we get down to a computer. I think it was like a $900 tower. Okay, a $900 tower. And I'm like, that's pretty good, because if you buy a computer at Best Buy or whatever, Office Depot, it's going to cost you, like $1,700, for a tower. That's really good. And I don't know what's good is good because I don't know crap about those because I knew about mainframes. So, oh, here they are again. So anyway, spamming up my channel again. They think they got free advertisement over here. So anyway, they it took I think a month or two. And on occasion I was trading with him, towards the deal. For clothes and jewelry for her. I didn't want to do too much until I got my product. Because I don't like those kind of deals. I like to get what I paid for on the spot. Boom, boom, we trade, we're done. So I get really nervous over this because I've paid like, I think over half at that point. So he calls me up one day and he says, look, I'll be down, in Dothan. He said, I'll come by your shop and I want to finish up with you on the computer. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking he's going to bring this computer, whatever. Anyway, we're talking and stuff, and he says, okay, so I'm at this point, and this is going to be all the stuff that's going to be on it. And, unless you want this, and this, or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. And so he says, but I will need a little bit of cash. I'm like, okay, so what are we talking? And he's like, well, like I would like to get about $200 in cash. I'm like, I can do that, no problem. And he said the rest, in stuff for honey. I'm like, okay. So anyway, the next day he brings the computer down, sets it up at my shop, and it's showing me and all the stuff and everything. And I think I had already got a screen, or he brought some other stuff. I don't know what it was. And so he he's it really looks good. He's showing me how it works and what it does and all this magic stuff, and it's super powerful, super fast. He's showing me the specs, on the computer itself, and then he's explaining to me about internet, because I need to buy internet, who I get it from, and because you got to buy it from like the phone company or the cable company or whatever, so he's telling me all that stuff. I'm like, cool. So, looks pretty good. So he's going to take it back, do a little bit more work to it. And I said, okay, well, when you bring it back and it's ready and it's all set to go and you hook it up in my shop, then, I'll pay you that $200 cash and we're square. Incredible it would be incredible if you still. No, actually, I would have still had it, but my storages were stolen that were out in Alabama. So anyway, he, comes back the next day. He calls me up, says, I'll be down in the area, and I'll bring your new computer. And you really like it. You'll really, really like it. And then I'm like, wow, this is great. So, what in living hell? Drives so damn stupid. So anyway, man, oh man. So anyway, he shows up, the next day. I got his 200 cash, no problem. I'm not giving it to him till everything's put together and I can see it works. Sets it all up for me. Man, it really does some magical stuff. On top of that, he put this game on there, this Tetris game. He's like, and I also installed, the newest Windows and this, here's a free game. And I'm like, okay, I don't even like Tetris. But I was like, yeah, thank you, that's cool. God, I hated it. And every time he would work on your computer, he'd always install a movie. Like he put a Shrek movie on there one time for my daughter. He put, different game on. Every time he worked on your computer, he always did some extra stuff to your computer. Like you turn it on and there was this stuff on there. So anyway, really nice guy and very reasonable. You could bring it to him or he'd come pick it up or he'd come by your house, work on it. Just great guy. So anyway, and he was doing good running the funeral home and all that kind of stuff. And so then, like the first time I had it, I didn't even know how to turn the sucker on. I had to call him. And the next day I'm like, check. I'm like, okay. He's like, how's the computer? I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean? I said, well, I don't know. It's like off. He goes, well, I set it on timer where it automatically shuts everything down after, so long. I said, okay, so how do you turn it back on? Do you unplug it, plug it back in? I don't know, because this was like real nouveau. It's like space age. It had special fans in it. It had lighting and all this stuff. So You got to remember, I worked on mainframes. I didn't do a lot of, you know, and even when my daughter and I were writing a program years ago, it was on a really, really, really old freaking like Apple computer or something. So anyway, uh, he tells me, okay, you know, there's like the three buttons. This is the button you push or whatever. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm on the phone with him on the cordless, going, okay, tell me exactly which button where to push, and you know, and then you know, it took time for it to start up, you know, and you know, I called the phone company and got them to set up this internet stuff. It was dial-up thing. You plugged a telephone line in the back of the computer and stuff. It would make these noises when you'd start it up, go doo 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 doo, and have little pictures showing the connection, like a cartoony on there. It was just ridiculous. But anyway, so it just took forever, and all of a sudden it was like, "Welcome to AOL, and you've got mail." So anyway, you know, he was doing a banging business, man. I mean, the word was going around cities and cities all around for about probably a 75-mile radius. Everybody knew the computer dude Chuck, right? You know, and he was just doing a great job at a funeral home. You know, he was just all around super duper guy. I felt sorry for him because I knew Honey was just never going to really be with this guy. And he was bound and determined that he was going to marry this girl. Now, you have to understand this guy was like maybe 5 foot tall, maybe all of 99 pounds, and had that clean cut military look, and was just a super, super nice guy. We used to have an old computer. It was bad. And so he you know, really neat dude. So anyway, one day, Honey's boyfriend shows up at the club. Rarely did he ever come to the club, but I knew him. And he was always really, you know, low profile, low key. After she was in there and had customers or whatever, he did not bother her. He looked like just some customer in the club, hanging out with the dudes and whatever. And so I knew him, and I knew that they lived in the same house together. I knew where they lived. I've been to their house. They're really nice people. And her guy was just the neatest guy in the world. And he was such a funny cat. So he come in and we were talking, and I said, "How's your computer doing that you got from Chuck, the computer dude?" And he goes, "That MF da da da." And I said, "What?" I said, "Because I just bought one from him, a big money computer, big money, and special built, customed, everything, and it took, you know, a couple months to get it." And I said, "It's pretty screaming, you know what I mean? It's really amazing computer." So he says, "Yeah, well," he said, "man, I had this thing kept coming up on the screen from Microsoft and all this stuff, and it was really bad and couldn't get it off. And somebody got some damn pulley that's all burned up." Damn. So anyway, I said, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "Then I had to call Microsoft, like be on hold and all this other stuff." And I said, "Wow, so what happened?" And he says, "Well, you know, that computer that Chuck built, you know, and gave to Honey, he says, that piece of crap," he said, "that Microsoft told me that the Windows were illegal." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, the damn Windows are illegal." I said, "Well, how are the Windows illegal? I mean, you know, he buys, you know, a new set of Windows, you know, to put on the computers and all that." Because I know from my computer, he was telling me, "I got you the newest Windows on the market," which was like, you know, I think it was like $500 by those Windows. I think it was Windows XP Pro. Yeah, it was Windows XP Pro. And and so that was big money. It was like $349 at Walmart to buy that. I don't think Walmart sells Windows anymore, but you used to be able to buy them back there in like the CD section and all that stuff. And when they had that, now they're selling record albums, like, record albums, like big LPs that go on stereos. Um, so funny. When 8-track come in, ring my bell and let me know. But anyway, just ringing my bell. So anyway, um, I'm like, man, that's a royal bummer. Must be a mistake. He goes, I don't know, but I'm friggin' pissed. He says because Microsoft saying it's a federal offense or something for the windows that are on my computer. I'm like, no way. And he's like, yep. I said, so he's like, F him. He said, if I see him again, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh. So anyway, he said, I'm going to have to buy a new set of windows. That's what Microsoft told me. I had to go to their site and buy windows. And he said, and guess how much that cost? And I'm like, oh man, royal bummer. I said, either that or go to Walmart. You could buy some windows that are cheaper, the cheaper brand version. I like that XP Pro. I think that's the best windows ever made. So anyway, he ended up buying new windows and he was just waiting to see Chuck. Oh, Chucky baby. Well, Chuck's computer business was banging, man. He had business cards. He was doing computers for all kinds of people. It was amazing. My computer worked great. My computer worked so good. It worked great until about the 4th year I had it. And then by that time, I was tweaking on computers and building computers and finding computers on the side of the road and parting parts out and building towers for people and fixing people's computers. I was getting to be pretty good, I wasn't a computer wizard, but I was a computer geek. So, and I had a very good friend of mine that was a computer wizard and still is to this day. He's really cool people. But anyway, so, more and more people were complaining, coming out of the woods and the clubs and going, hey, you guys seen that computer dude, Chuck? Chuck, the computer guy. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of, yeah, he's, I got Windows, the Home Edition. Man, the XP Pro was the one. Home was so dry. That XP Pro was the one. And so, anyway, it just was grotesque expensive. And the worst one was that, what was that stuff I have on that 1 HP I've got that I paid $5,000 for? And it was the sorriest Windows I ever had. It was right after XP, I think. And it was the sorriest, crappiest Windows ever designed on the face of the earth. And so, anyway, I still have that computer and I'm going to puke. That computer cost me so much money. And I had to buy a whole new set of Windows to redo it. But anyway, so more and more people are coming out of the woodwork. They're going, hey man, you seen that computer guy, Chuck? And we're all like going, And it's like everybody's pissed off. Their Windows are junk. They call them Microsoft or their computer completely crashes. See, what will happen is there's a little thing in the right-hand side of the screen that'll say, click on this to validate your Windows for originality or some crap. And then when you click on it, then it does this test. And then it'll, after about 30 minutes, then it'll go, your Windows are not valid. and you're like, well, so who cares? And then you close it out. And then your computer gets like this creeping, deadly thing that just takes it over. And then every time you turn the computer on the right hand of that screen, from that little 1" by 1" thing will get bigger every single time. And it gets even bigger. And it's just in your way. You can't get rid of it. And it keeps like growing on the right side of the screen until it's like 5 by 5, And you have to look around it to try to do your work. It is horrible. So, it was really, really, really bad. And so, the one, Vista was that pile of caca. Man, give me change back for that. Vista's the biggest bullcrap. There was one before that was even worse. And it was a really off name one that was several years before that. And it was really trashola, and I thought that was going to be a banger, and it was garbage. And they only did one issue of it. It had a real weird name. Um, so anyway, when they make bad windows like that, they should be giving you free windows to replace it, because that one was total trash. Windows 95. Okay, after Windows 95, there was another weirdo version. It had a weird name to it. And that one was a real crash and burn, too. It didn't last long at all. And I almost bought a set from a guy. But anyway, so all these computers, everybody's mad, and they're looking for Chuck, the computer guy. Right? And so, when I got my computer, mine was registered to PC Anyone. Okay? And I was like, I asked him one time, I said, am I supposed to put my name on there? And he goes, oh no, it's fine. He said, you don't want to put your real name on there. He said, you should always just leave it plain. So PC Anyone is good. And I'm like, oh, okay. And now that is the registration of the Windows. Okay. And so, I went over and I took a look at Honey's computer, and I said, hey, when it started up, it said PC Anyone. And I said, you have the same name on your computer as mine does. And I said, maybe that's why it's not working right, because, the same name is on there or something. And bottom line is, what happens is, when you buy a brand new set of windows in the case, okay, whether you get it at Best Buy or Office Depot, or, I don't think Walmart sells windows anymore, or any computer software. I think all this sells like games now. I could be wrong though, but I haven't noticed any computer software in Walmart in a lot of years, since like the early 2000s. But anyway, so it will say on the box, it'll say this this issue is good for 2 or 3 computers to the same owner or something like that. So if you have a laptop, and you got 2 desktop computers, you can load all of it and register it legally to you. It's like you can't reuse it, only just on 3 units that are yours, right? And so here's the thing. Or you have to go to Microsoft on the website and order it there, and it takes a living lifetime to download it all. Because back then, you had to be megabytes to be buying broadband and all this other stuff. Everybody had dial-up. And even at CenturyTel, the dial-up, they had 3 different rates for the dial-up. It started at $6.99, and it went to $12.99, and then it went to $39.99. And then, if you wanted to get into broadband, that was going to be $89.99 a month. And then they had all this other stuff that was going to be $100 a month. So, you just want to buy the cheapo stuff. You weren't going to be living on the computer. You just used it, for a reason, for work or whatever. But anyway, so all these computers get all trashied up. And now they're coming up to the funeral home, and people are bringing their computers up there, mad as piss. And he's like, oh, I'll fix it. I'll take care of it. Your computer's probably got a virus and all that. And I will make sure it's right. And all these computers, and people are mad as piss. and things are not looking right. And then next thing you know, my brother calls me up because you seen Chuck? I'm like, no. Have you? I said, he won't wander too far from Honey because he still thinks he's marrying her. I said, but they're real pissed off because they got some screwed up computer. He said, well, there's a lot of people that are pissed off about his computer work. But he's making good on it. So well, I don't know. Something's wrong. Something is wrong here because everybody's Windows is jacked, and so now my computer was great until about 4 or 5 years, and it showed that the Windows were like pirateware. And so I was really bummed. And I mean, it'll trash your computer. God, you about have to take the hard drive out and put a new one in because it will eat it alive. So, anyway, if you can ban them from the channel, that would be great. Ban them for life. But anyway, so, my brother's like, well, I haven't seen him. Well, after, a week or two, he still hasn't seen him, and he's got Grandpa's Cadillac. Really nice Cadillac. And then he calls and talks to him a little bit, and says he'll be back soon or whatever. But right, his health's really bad. And he supposedly had like this poopy disease. I don't know how true that was, but that was my understanding that somebody had told me he was very, very, very sick. Well, so then I start looking some stuff up. And after a few months go by, nobody knows where this guy is at. There's broken computers everywhere. And people are pissed. And Grandpa's Cadillac's still gone. And nobody knows what's happened to Chuck. Like, did somebody kidnap him? Did he get murdered? Was he a scammer? What was the deal? Well, then somebody told me, he worked down at Radio Shack in the mall in Dothan. I'm like, no. So went down to Radio Shack. I talked to them. So a guy named Chuck that like works on computers? The guy was like, yeah, why? And I'm like, has he been here? And he's like, no, why? And I'm like, well, all right, I got this interesting story to tell you. And it was really bad. Turned out Chuck used to work, it was at the Radio Shack. And it gets better as we go along. Trust me. So the Radio Shack guy goes, yeah, he worked here and everything, and he was a manager here and everything. And he said, but it didn't come out very well. And I was like, huh? And he said, yeah. He said, it's real strange. He said, the safe kept coming up a little bit short. And then all of a sudden there was this huge amount that was gone. It was a supposed theft or something. And it was just like the end. And that's right about the time that he started managing the old Oasis. When he was buying like, $500 worth of clothes and jewelry from me for his girlfriend, Honey, that I hadn't met yet. Because I worked with at another club, 40 miles down the road. That I also knew since way back at Columbus, Georgia, out on Victory Drive for years before that. So it was really funny. So I called my brother and I said, well, okay, so Chuck used to work at the mall, at the Radio Shack, and there's some kind of deal about the money in the safe. And he's like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, well, now, yeah. And he says, well, now, the thing is that he said he's got the Cadillac, so I mean, he can't go far with that because Cadillac's in my name. It was my granddaddy's car, like, okay, cool. I would call the DMV and have them, report a stolen car. Good idea. I think I'll do that. I hate to do that though, because I sure like Chuck. I said, well, I think Chuck isn't nothing but ground up Chuck because that Joker's been gone, like 3 months, and there's something wrong with this picture. So he goes, well, I don't know. I hate to think that because, I believe in people and everything. I said, I'm telling you, man, there's something wrong here. There's a ton of broken computers. People are mad. There's some kind of deal with the windows where, they're all like fracturing. And I said, but, at least mine are still good, My computer's working fine. So anyway, which probably, I bet you what it is, I got the first set of windows and everybody else's was all duped, right? But anyway, and he probably reused it again years later. But anyway, and then that's probably what crashed and burned mine. So, and I mean, if he registered every one of them PC anyone, then obviously, the name's carried on. So, anyway, people are sometimes creature of habit. So anyway, he, has to go down to the DMV and all that about that Cadillac and everything. Turns out, they said, well, you sold your Cadillac. He said, no, I didn't. Never would I sell that Cadillac. It's Grandpa's. No, it was sold. They said, well, you just proved to me it was sold because I never sold that car. Well, they pull up paperwork and everything, and there's his signature on the title. Papers, everything. And I'm like, were you drunk and stupid, or how did that happen? He's like, I used to let Chuck handle everything. And, if he needed a signature or whatever, I just sign stuff. Sometimes he signed stuff. He said, because, Chuck was just really great and very trustworthy. I said, well, I'm thinking that. I think he just stole your Cadillac. And so never seen the Cadillac since. Never seen or heard from Chuck since. I got real good on the computer, on the internet, where I could search stuff about people and do background checks and interesting things on the internet. And guess what? The name he used was the name of a big time general at the local base. How you like that? I'm like, I bet that wasn't even his real name. Because it's identical. If you look up his name on the computer, it comes up listing after listing about this general at the local base. There you go. To this day, I don't know anybody has ever seen him again. No one. No one. Never seen the Cadillac again. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if you ever run into the computer guy named Chuck, don't do it. Don't do it. All right, you guys, I love you. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate the 2 thumbs up. And that's a true story now. No joke, that's a true story. But yeah, let's see what we got here. I would have to trust issues after that. Yeah, really. Oh yeah, we were all kind of hoping for karma, buddy. Let me tell you, it was like, God, there was so many people. I mean, it went on for years. You would hate to trust tech people. It went on for years. There were so many people coming out of woodwork going, hey, you guys seen Chuck the computer guy? We'd all be looking at each other going, no more. And they go, yeah, he screwed me over damn computer. And you'd be going, no way. Well, that was charming. There was a guy over here that just rolled down his window and poured his pee-pee out the window of the car. Gross. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it went on for so many years. Every time his name would come up in the clubs or whatever, We all just kind of laugh and shake our head and go, no. And it was like people wanted to hunt this little dude down for sure. My brother thinks his health was seriously bad and he wasn't going to last long anyway. And I said, man, he might have been lying about that crap too, you know. And I said, if he would put on that big of a show for people and fake them out all day long, and what is he? What do you think he's doing today? Is he doing computers? Is he in another strip club? Where is he at today? And what is his real name? That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? I mean, you never know. You never know. And growing up in California, people are so different there and wild and colorful. I mean, it's like people come up to you and they'll be talking to you about, like, here was the guy that goes, Star Wars has an underlying message. I've went and I watched it 31 times. And you're going, what? And it's like, why on earth would somebody, pay that kind of money, which was huge money to go see Star Wars, uh, to go watch it 31 times because there's an underlying message. I mean, really? Really? Do you really think they sold that movie to friggin' uh this is so weird. That guy just peed, poured it out in a cup, is leaving now. So, I mean, I just can't imagine Star Wars put a subliminal message of some sort in their movie that is, a very important futuristic thing here to warn the world, and so that you would have to pay big money to go see this movie like 31 times to get the underlying message. People would come up with stuff like that in California. They would come up with stuff that you could not believe, and they're standing there telling you all this stuff like real serious, like you're waiting for them to say, "Ha ha, I'm just kidding," and they don't. So you gotta be like very attentive, and you don't laugh, and God, that guy has lights. He doesn't. He left with no lights on, and he only has half of a license plate tag like on his back of his car. That's shady. That might have been Chuck. Um, but yeah, they tell you the weirdest stories, and you got to be all serious, like have a poker face and shake your head. Yeah, right, yeah, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because they really believe what they're saying, and you're going, is this real or is this Memorex? Because these people are tripping. You know what I mean? And they're usually stone sober. Okay, the stone sober ones are the scariest ones. Um, um, and so it's you have to be conditioned by it. I grew up around it, all the funny characters. Chuck's still ripping people off, probably. If he's still alive. I mean, this is way back in the early 2000s, and so uh uh it was. It's just like I've listened to the crap for so many years in California, with people coming up with these brilliant $1 million ideas that this is going to work, or this is going to be $1 million thing, or pyramid deals, all this different caca, and you just go, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, you know, and uh, it's like, what is that really ugly car? And a friend of mine had two of them parked behind the gas station that he owned. And they were like, man, and it's so ugly. The front end of that car is so flippin' ugly. And it was like an old 50s car. And he's like, these cars are going to be worth millions of dollars in so many years. And I'm like, there's nobody on earth that's going to pay for that car because it's so flippin' ugly in the front. It was in the movie Peggy Sue Got Married. And when she came out and she says, Daddy, you bought and whatever that car was, that was the car. And my buddy built it on the Chevron station out by Culver City. Had two of those cars that are meant, and they're so ugly. And he was like, they're going to be worth millions. I'm like, they're right. Mm-hmm. So there's people come up with so much stuff. You just have to be respectful and keep that poker face and go, okay, yeah, sounds like an interesting idea. And you just don't know whether they're believing or not, because it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous, you know. Um, I remember a guy that said, you know, everything you're going to eat is going to be like in pill form, like astronaut food, where you don't have to go to restaurants anymore. You just take pills and stuff. I'm like, well, okay, you know. I mean, cars will run on peroxide, you know. Sure, you're right. I mean, there's so much stuff that you listen to in California. And then, you know, when you move south, it's kind of a little more real. No, it was the car and Peggy Sue got married in the movie. And when her daddy said he bought a new family car, and then she ran out there with all the other kids to go out front of the house to see it. And she went, "Oh, you bought a whatever it was," and it was like the dog of the year car. Okay, so and it's ugly sucker. Okay, it was ugly. So it was so funny because it was just like anything else that people said or did. Okay, and but yeah, yeah. So, but you know, I don't know, just incredible. Nice guy, great prices, really did good work. And you know, was beneficial to so many people. Like when he ran that club, God, that club, man, that club was so on top. But it was just like he ripped off everybody in his path, you know, and it was a shame because the guy was smart. And instead of ripping people off, it could have been a straight up kind of guy, you know, because everybody loved Chuck. He was good people, you know. He didn't really seem fake in any way, you know. He seemed like a real straight up kind of guy, but you know, it was definitely interesting. Yep. So there you have it. True story. To this day, nobody knows where Chuck is or the Cadillac. Anyway, you guys, I gotta get going because it's getting hotter now, and I don't get to sleep too much to the morning because it's too deadly hot. It gets worse and worse every day, so I gotta go to sleep earlier and get up earlier, or I'm just gonna be a mess. So I'm hoping to make it through the summer here without dying. He was good at tricking people, you know. It was a shame. It was a shame. What a good guy. But he wasn't, you know. But yeah, bottom line was he was taking the Windows and duping it out on every single computer. And that's why they were all crashing down. Because you just can't keep duping Windows over and over and over again. They're registered. They have a registration number, and Microsoft picks it up. And they intentionally trash up your computer as long as you'll run that. And sometimes you have to take the hard drive out and throw it in the trash because it's pure trash. Because it'll just eat it up. I know I've worked on too many of them to know. You know, and I've worked on a lot of computers myself because I got really into it. You know, when Chuck disappeared, I had to start working on my own computers. So I learned how to do a lot. And, you know, I'd pick up computers off the side of the street and part them out and find really cool hard drives in them. I built a computer with 5 hard drives in it, 5 or 6 for a friend of mine. I think I put 6 on them. And I mean, I just used to do all kinds of stuff. I ordered from Newegg and all that. And yeah, it's been fun. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great one. I got to get down the street and go 99 night. And I'll see you tomorrow in the next one. I got a bunch of vlogs I've got to do. And so hang tight and I'll see you there. Love ya.